Hello, I'm Jonathan Bowman-Perks and welcome to my favourite time of the month. And this month I thought I'd review the first month's worth of podcasts because it's been a great first month, and thank you for all your support and subscription and lovely reviews that you've given. Please keep them coming and share the message with them of these amazing different leaders that I'm fortunate enough to meet and to share their wisdom and experience. So who have we had? We've had the Deputy of the Army, Lieutenant General Sir Nick Pope. We've had Dame Alison Nimmo, the CEO of the Crown Estate. Major General Paul Nanson, the Commandant at Sandhurst and in charge of all the training for officers and soldiers throughout the Army. Colonel George Mendonca, working at the Grosvenor Estate. We've had Anna Hemmings, MBE, an Olympian, six-time world champion. We've had Alistair Kett, a senior PwC partner and former Army officer, and Brigadier Jim Richardson, who was a brigade commander in the Army and then went on to become the CEO of the Haig Housing Trust. So what's the theme of these first 8? Is there a common theme that people are picking up and writing in the very nice reviews that they're doing? I think people were sort of saying these guys these men and women have had tough jobs, tough careers, but they've thrived on it. That they've all shown a lot of courage, that they're prepared to learn, they're prepared to make mistakes, and they have the humility to get feedback and listen from it. Like, they learn every day. They talk about the fact that it's a lifelong learning experience. And they also have shown an immense amount of discipline, whether it be as a world champion in the canoeing and then going into the Olympics, or whether it be army officers in combat, or people just in really tough jobs like rebuilding Manchester after the IRA bombing. They're also very reflective people. I found it really interesting being with them because they think about their experiences and how they can pass it on to other people. And they're these lifelong learners. They're never so arrogant that they think they know it all. Also, very quick to be open and appropriately vulnerable to admitting to their mistakes, because it really is a measure of a leader whether they ever think they've made mistakes. And if they think they haven't made a mistake, then that is a problem. And also, they love this idea of being team coach. Certainly Dame Alison Nimmo came out with that, as she was the team coach and bringing them on. Or that they've been prepared to push others forward, but then when the times are tough, they will lead and they'll be the ones that go to the front. And I think of when I was with the Scots Guards, who served on Mount Tumbledown and the Falklands, and my platoon had been to war. Sadly, I hadn't, but then who knows, if I'd been to war, I might have suffered grievously, as many of them did. But they found that sometimes the officer or the leader was at the back encouraging, but other times when the times were toughest, the leader was expected to go to the front. And that's the same in business, though far too few business leaders do, when the times are tough, go to the front. Instead, they sacrifice somebody else, their PR person or their marketing director or someone else, to take the bullets because they don't want to take it themselves. They got too much of a protection of themselves. But not in the military. Serve to lead, and the fact that you don't expect anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. That doesn't mean you get stuck in the guts of an organisation and meddle in the small stuff. You let people get on with their job. And the other thing which came as a theme throughout them all, of the 8 of them, is this phenomenal resilience, bouncing back from disappointments, from successes, or from mistakes. But certainly, particularly with Anna Hemmings, who, amazing lady, talking about her resilience, and I'll talk about that later. So, as well as being fortunate to interview these 8 leaders in the last month, I've also been busy coaching people, doing some speaking events and some team coaching. And it was particularly the team coaching stayed with me recently. I was doing a team coaching event. And it's this balance between self-awareness and the preparation before a team event, where individuals get the psychometrics and the feedback, whether it be our inspiring leadership tool about their performance and their potential, or there's other tools that we use. And also the mutual awareness and awareness of their impact on others. too few people really are aware of their positive or negative impact on other people and the shadow that they cast, whether it be a good one or a bad one. But self-awareness, mutual awareness, really important. And then a key theme, and it came up in the interviews as well, but it certainly comes up in team coaching events and team facilitation, is this aspect of trust. Are you worthy of trust? Would people follow you? Do they believe you are consistent and reliable? And when you say you're going to do something, are they sure you are? Or are you going to screw them over and they'll be left vulnerable because they did something and you've changed your mind and never told them, and then never admitted it was your mistake but blamed it on them? And in these team events, I found the most powerful one is when you do build up a level of trust and there is healthy, constructive conflict. If there is no conflict and it always seems nicey-nicey, that's not credible and it's not believable. And I think it's this appropriate vulnerability, and that they will share stories about themselves and their experiences so people can better understand who they're working with. Because a bit like Alistair Kett talked about in his session, that the triangle of feeding the beast, that cranking the handle, just doing the transactions, the bit of theatre and motivation and inspiration that you need to do as a leader, but not too much, and that real bit in the far right corner of reality and authenticity and admitting when you don't know and encouraging others and asking them questions. So that combination of trust, but if there's sufficient trust and psychological safety, then you can be appropriately vulnerable. And when you are in the right group, then you'll know that in a tight corner you can trust each other and who you can ask for. And then the other thing which came up is, of course, beware ego. The ego is the enemy. And when people get so full of themselves, or they take the credit for themselves, that gets dangerous. When they're willingly giving credit to other people and acknowledging people's successes, people's strengths, and looking for the best in people rather than trying to tear others down in order to lift themselves up, then that's really good. And the other thing to beware of is comparison, and people who are massively competitive. Competition is good, but not when it becomes what we call relative deprivation, where they're constantly comparing themselves to other people and they feel good or bad depending on how they do in comparison to others. Just do your job really well and you will be rewarded. But don't constantly be comparing yourself and thinking you're either good or bad relative to other people. Just get on and do a really great job. So that's my first thoughts about the first month of the podcast and the fascinating leaders that I've been lucky enough to interview. Looking forward to the next month, and we're going to have some really great people. We've got Colonel Tim Collins, Air Marshal Sir Graham Stacey. We're going to have this, is going to be one of the podcasts, episode 11. Richard Fenning from Control Risk, the former CEO there. Nathan Newton-Willington, who is a personal trainer who at 30 years old has achieved a lot in his life and admits the mistakes he's made. Colonel Johnny Gray from Control Risks, and now he's going on to be the CEO of the Tennis Integrity Unit. Paul Cleal, a senior partner at PwC and now a coach. And the final two is Ashok Gupta, and Ashok is both chairman, NED, and been a former CEO, and Alexander Niggi, who is the CMO at Emirates Airlines. So a fascinating group. We'll be talking about stoical philosophy, and your attitude defines your altitude. Your attitude defines your altitude. So look forward to the coming series, and I hope you enjoy it. Please share it, pass it on, and we'll speak again soon.